After World War II, as the world turned toward rebuilding in peace, a shadow war began in the dense jungles of Southeast Asia, unseen, unacknowledged, and devastating beyond imagination. This is the story of how the CIA waged a secret bombing campaign over Laos, a small landlocked country caught in the crossfire of Cold War ambitions. The campaign, known only to a few, dropped more bombs on Laos than the entire Pacific theater of World War II, turning villages into ashes and millions of lives into an endless nightmare. The jungles, which once echoed with the songs of birds and whispers of ancient civilizations, became a relentless theater of death, where every inch of land was saturated with explosives, shrapnel, and pain. This covert war was not fought openly with armies or tanks, but with aircraft flying silently in the night, unleashing torrents of destruction, while the world looked the other way behind the scenes. The CIA orchestrated a complex web of alliances with local tribes, secret armies led by the legendary General Vang Pao, and a ruthless mission to contain communism by any means necessary. Yet buried beneath this strategic endeavor was a horrific humanitarian catastrophe. Millions displaced, hundreds of thousands killed, and countless more maimed by unexploded ordnance that still claims victims today. The secret war in Laos was a ghost conflict hidden from the American public and denied by governments. Yet its echoes ripple through generations. As we unravel this forgotten chapter, we confront uncomfortable questions. How far should a nation go in pursuit of power? What price is too high when fighting a shadow enemy? And how does history remember those who suffered in silence? This is a journey into the heart of darkness, where the true cost of freedom was measured not just in lives lost on battlefields, but in the invisible wounds etched into the soul of a nation and its people. Laos was a country caught between giants, a small and fragile nation whose fate was sealed by the Cold War's relentless march. The communist path at Laos was gaining ground, supported by North Vietnam and the Soviet Union, while the United States feared the spread of communism. Like a contagion, the CIA stepped in with a secret war to tip the scales, a war hidden from the world, and even many Americans. This covert conflict was fought by proxy forces. The Hmong tribesmen, led by General Vang Pao, became America's soldiers in the shadows, risking everything for a cause they barely understood. Their villages were transformed into bases, airstrips were carved out of the jungle, and supply drops became lifelines. Yet for all their bravery, the people of Laos paid the highest price. The relentless bombing campaign flattened entire regions. Villages were erased from maps, families torn apart, and children left to grow up among craters and unexploded bombs. The world's most heavily bombed country became a graveyard of silent screams and forgotten victims. Yet the bombs kept falling. The U.S. Air Force flew missions so secret that many pilots didn't even know where they were bombing. These air raids destroyed not only enemy positions but also the fragile fabric of Laotian society. As the jungles turned red with fire, the international community remained largely silent. The Americans denied the campaign, and the Soviets ignored it. The truth was buried under layers of secrecy and propaganda. Decades later, survivors still walked the scarred earth, dodging the deadly remnants of a war they never chose to fight. And the questions linger. How much suffering can be justified in the name of freedom? And what price did the people of Laos pay for a conflict they were never meant to be part of? The secret war in Laos is a haunting reminder of the hidden costs of global power struggles and the lives forever changed by bombs that fell in silence. As the dense green jungles of Laos stretched endlessly beneath the scorching sun, the air, thick with humidity, and the constant hum of insects beneath the surface, a storm of devastation was silently gathering. The people of Laos lived simple lives, fishing, hunting, and farming, unaware that the skies above them were about to rain a relentless barrage of destruction. The United States, driven by fear and the desperate need to contain communism, unleashed an air campaign so secret, so brutal, that its echoes would haunt generations to come. The secret war was not just a fight against an enemy. It was a battle to control the very soul of a nation, where every bomb drop shattered homes, dreams, and futures. The CIA trained and armed the Hmong tribesmen, who were thrown into a deadly chess game far beyond their understanding. Their loyalty was bought with promises of protection and survival. Yet, as the bombing intensified, the Hmong villages became graves. Their people caught in the crossfire between invisible enemies and invisible allies. The jungles that once provided shelter now became a deadly maze littered with unexploded bombs that waited like hidden monsters ready to kill indiscriminately. Children lost limbs. Farmers lost their livelihoods. Entire families torn apart by fear and hunger. Yet despite the horrors, the war continued in silence. The planes came in waves during moonless nights. Their engines muffled their targets, erased without a trace. The Americans called it a secret, but to the people living in Laos, it was a nightmare they could never wake up from. The government in Washington turned a blind eye to the mounting civilian casualties, preferring to bury the truth under layers of classified documents and political rhetoric. While the world focused on the Vietnam War, the tragedy unfolding in Laos was overshadowed, hidden in the shadows, where no one cared to look. The CIA's covert operation expanded, recruiting more tribesmen, promising them hope, but delivering despair. The price of loyalty was paid in blood. The legends of General Vang Pao, who led the secret army, became both a beacon of hope and a symbol of the war's futility. His soldiers fought bravely, but they were outmatched, outgunned, and abandoned in the dense jungle. The secret war tore families apart. Generations were scarred by loss and trauma. The land itself seemed to weep under the weight of bombs that continued to fall. The once vibrant culture of Laos was eclipsed by the darkness of war and the silence that followed. Today, unexploded ordnance still kills innocent civilians decades after the last bomb fell. The legacy of this forgotten war is a chilling reminder of the human cost of secrecy and power. And as we peel back the layers of this hidden conflict, the question remains: how many more silent wars are being fought away from the eyes of the world? And how many more innocent lives will be shattered in the name of ideology and control? The story of Laos is not just a chapter in Cold War history, but a warning echoing through time, a call to remember the forgotten and to question the true price of war. As the years dragged on, the secret bombing campaign in Laos continued its ruthless course. The skies remained darkened with the hum of warplanes, while below the earth was scarred with craters and the bones of those lost to a conflict few even knew existed. The CIA's covert operations became a blueprint for shadow wars around the world, a grim reminder of how power and secrecy intertwine to shape history. In the midst of this chaos, ordinary people struggled to survive. Families were shattered, communities torn apart. The children who survived faced lives marked by fear, trauma, and loss, their futures stolen by bombs that fell like rain in silence. The Hmong fighters who had once been seen as heroes found themselves abandoned, betrayed by the very powers they served, and as international attention slowly turned away, the war's deadly legacy grew darker. Unexploded ordnance became a curse passed from generation to generation, turning peaceful villages into death traps. Farmers walking the fields at dawn could never be certain if their next step would be their last. The story of Laos is one of sacrifice, but also of resilience, of a people who endured the unimaginable and yet refused to be forgotten. The secret war may have been hidden from the world, but its scars are etched deep in the hearts of those who lived it, and in the land that still bears the wounds of bombs that never stopped falling. As we close this chapter, the echoes of Laos remind us that the true cost of war is never counted in statistics, but in the shattered lives and silenced voices that history often ignores. And as new conflicts emerge and powers clash in shadows, the question lingers: will the lessons of Laos ever be learned, or will the cycle of secret wars and silent suffering continue to haunt humanity forever?